If you are looking for one of the best subwoofers in the world, make sure to stick around on today's video where we're going to unbox and talk about not one, not two, but 3 JTR RS2s that have 6 18-inch drivers and 12,000 watts between the 3 of them. The subwoofers we're talking about today just may be the end of my epic journey to find the perfect bass for my home theater. I've had many subwoofers over the past 5 years, from DIY mini Martys to Polk to Klipsch to SVS, Power Sound Audio, Funk Audio, Harbottle Audio, and finally the JTRs. This journey has been so much fun though, and I'm glad that I tried so many brands, but I feel like I just might be at the end of my journey with these JTRs. For those of you that have followed my audio journey, you know that I wanted to have 3 or 4 identical looking and identical performing subwoofers that provide an extreme bass experience in my room. But before we get into all of that, let's unbox one of these subwoofers for the camera so that we can see how they are packaged and what they all come with. I will only be unboxing one of the subwoofers. The other 2 are literally exactly the same, so I don't want to waste your time with unboxing 3 identical packages. We're going to get the gist of it from unboxing just the one. Alright, so the time has finally come, guys, to get these out of the box. I know, as you can see, I already couldn't wait. I did unbox one just to kind of see how to do it, to make sure that I'm not going to be wrecking anything while I'm unboxing it on video. So one of the main things I want to point out when you're going to unbox one of the Captivator RS2s, I'm not sure how some of the other subwoofers are boxed up, but with this one, basically right on the other side of this cardboard is the enclosure. There is some cellophane around it, but there's no foam or anything. So be very careful when you're cutting the tape, because if you go too deep, you will be scratching the finish of the subwoofer. So that's one of the main things I wanted to point out when unboxing one of these. And another thing is the other side, which is awesome of JTR, but they have it labeled grill side. So obviously the cloth grill is right on the other side here. So if you were to cut that tape, again, if you go too deep, you're going to cut the grill itself. So I like that they labeled it, so that I can start with this side. But again, just wanted to point out to you guys to make sure that if you guys get any of these, to be very careful when you're cutting the tape. You don't want to go too deep, and you'll see as soon as I open this up, there's the subwoofer right there. So if you go deep, you're going to be cutting up the paint, and then you're going to be mad. So now you know. So it's a good thing on the first one I was very careful as well. So the other thing is, these are actually quite difficult to get out of the box. So what I learned to do, at least to speed it up a little bit, is first of all tilt it up, get that out of the way, and secondly I have these carpet sliders right here, so I put them on the other side here so that when I tip it over to get it out of the box, it just helps me get a little bit of grip underneath it. So I don't know if this is going to stay in frame. The camera's already as far back as it can go, but get this out of the way, and then just have these right here lined up so that when I put it down, it's got a little gap for me to grab onto after. Now, another thing is the box is very hard to get off. So what I'm trying to do here is I cut a little bit on either side to kind of give me a handle. Because there's so much suction, the box just doesn't want to come up on its own. So, yeah, this one's even more difficult than the other ones. As you can see, it just doesn't want to come off of the subwoofer. So what you have to do is basically just kind of walk it up. Unless, of course, you had help, which I don't right now. So what I have to do is do this until it loosens up a little bit. So as you guys can see, it's a bit of a struggle for one person, especially when you're doing 3 of them after moving them downstairs. But once you get the box off, you're greeted with the magnetic grill, which is nicely wrapped. And I'm really happy that they came with magnetic grills. The Funk and Harbottle subwoofers don't even come with a grill. let alone a magnetic one, so it's kind of nice that these are included. Then you just have your power cable. Just toss that aside there. And now, because I have my carpet sliders underneath, I have a little handle underneath. Lift it up. And these are 220 pounds each, so they're a little bit to handle. I know that these JTRs don't have the same premium finish as my previous Funk 24E and the Harbottle C24, which, by the way, both of them were sold to a guy named Gary, great guy, and he has a channel called The Brown Cinema, so make sure you go check his channel out. If you want to see more about those subwoofers, I'll drop a link to his channel down in the description below. But these JTRs do have a very nice build and finish in their own right. Let's talk about some of the basics of what makes up the JTR RS2s. They are a sealed enclosure made from 3/4 inch Baltic birch and are finished with a matte black texture paint, which is kind of similar to Duratec paint, which is often used in the DIY world. It does look nice, and as you can see in the pictures, they do actually complement my system very nicely, but are more of a utilitarian finish, I guess, in my opinion. The drivers are both high-performance, high-excursion 18-inch drivers, and are both being driven by a 4,000-watt RMS DSP-optimized amplifier. And on the top of that amplifier, you have the on-off and auto toggle, the standby LED, the gain, the LF adjust, crossover, and delay dials, as well as XLR input and output for looping, and the 12-volt triggers, and finally the 2 RCA inputs. Down below that, you just have the removable power cable and the master power switch. We'll cover more specs when I do the review, but you get the idea. These are incredibly powerful, high-performance subwoofers. The setup on these was really quite easy. It's pretty standard for any subwoofer, really. I just used XLR cables to hook them up, but you could also use RCAs if you wanted. You can even daisy chain them together with XLR cables with the in and outputs on the amplifier itself. After I had the two front subs hooked up, I started them with about half gain, and oh man, it was pretty intense. My room was just incredibly energized with that thick and heavy quality bass that I've come to love from my previous subwoofers, and that was with only 2 of them hooked up in my room, and as you know, I do have 3 of them. So I actually knew right away that I would have headroom for days because there was just far too much bass, even at half gain. So I just had to turn them down to about 1/4 gain to have them level matched at about 83 dB at the MLP. Yes, I do like to run my subwoofers a little bit hot. I know that some people set them for 75. I like them at 83. But me explaining it doesn't really put it into perspective, so let me play some demos for you guys. But first, a real quick disclaimer. My recording equipment, my room, and the device that you're listening on will greatly affect the sound. So this is not an accurate depiction of what I'm hearing in my room. And speaking of the device you're listening on, make sure that you are using a system with a subwoofer or 2 or a really good set of headphones. But be careful with your volume, guys. There is going to be a lot of bass here. Also, please help me get to 20,000 subscribers. Hit the subscribe button, tick the bell icon. It just takes 1 second to hit that like button as well. All right, here we go, guys. Enjoy these demos. Now, in some of these demos, you may have noticed that the subwoofers aren't really moving that much, or there's not that much excursion, but that's because there's just so much power between these three. I don't really need to push them anywhere near their limits to absolutely destroy my room. I also don't really want to go deaf, so I can't crank them up, but trust me when I say, even at those levels, it's more bass than you could ever imagine in this room, and everything is shaking. I'm sure you could even hear my fireplace and the doors shaking in those demos. And even at these levels, guys, it can blur your vision, and it does make you actually feel a little bit dizzy, so I don't like to listen like that very often, except for demos like this. Okay, now I know a lot of you are thinking, Barrett, just shut up and tell us how they compare to the Funk and the Harbottle subwoofers, and what are your first impressions of the RS2s? Well, join us next time for those answers. No, nobody's leaving? Okay, fine. I knew I wouldn't get away with it that easy, but I thought I'd give it a try. But let's be clear first, I've not spent enough time with these subwoofers to give like a detailed comparison of any kind. I can only give you my initial impressions versus what I had before, and my initial impressions of these subwoofers on their own. All right, I've already mentioned it in this video, but for those that don't know what I had before, I had the Funk Audio 24E and the Harbottle Audio C24, which were both 24-inch subwoofers. Price-wise, the Funk Audio 24E is a little bit more money than the JTR RS2s, and the Harbottle C24 is over about double the cost of the RS2s. My initial impressions are that the 24E is no comparison for the RS2 as far as output goes. The RS2 does energize my room noticeably more, and it just feels like it offers more as far as bass goes in my room. And when compared to the Harbottle C24, it feels like it's on par. The RS2 and the C24 offer very thick and heavy quality bass. I would say that they're more similar than they are different in the sound department, but my initial impression is that the JTRs hit a little bit harder than the C24, but the C24 might offer just a little bit more down low. With all that said, though, stay tuned for the review. I did take some room measurements of both the Funk and the Harbottle in the exact same spot in my room so that I could do the exact same with the RS2, and then I can compare those measurements just to see the response in the exact same spot and just to give a general idea of output. Obviously, it's not very scientific, but it will give a general idea. But I will say this, I'm not at all disappointed in my decision to go to the JTRs or to change to the JTRs. I don't feel that I'm missing anything other than the premium finish from the Funk and the Harbottle. I still have room-filling, hard-hitting quality bass, but that being said, I'm also truly happy that I tried the Funk Audio and the Harbottle Audio subwoofers. They did look amazing and they did perform great. I'm not trying to knock the Funk or Harbottle subwoofers at all. It's only to say that I feel like I'm getting on par performance with the RS2 to the C24 and a little bit better performance with the RS2 than the 24E. And I did get that for a little bit less money. Now, I don't want to turn this into a huge comparison, but I know that there was a lot of you out there that wanted to know. But there you have it. Those are my initial impressions and in the initial comparison, I guess, to what I had before. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe, tick the bell icon if you do, and please take just 1 second out of your day to hit that like button. I truly do appreciate it. Remember to enjoy your systems. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.